So we got a big match coming up this weekend on the road in Tampa Bay against the Rowdies. And to help us out with that, we've got James from RBLR Sports. They cover all the sports there in Tampa. Rays, Buccaneers, Lightning, and of course, Rowdies is who we're talking about here. James, thank you for taking some time to join us on this episode.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to discuss it with you guys because, as I'm sure we hear on the other way, or maybe it's just something that you guys experience, but it's difficult to watch the West Coast games, and I imagine it's probably difficult for you guys to watch the East Coast games. So I don't have all of the knowledge about the West Coast teams, and that's why I love talking to you guys when we have those games.
Now, before we get into this conversation, now that we've got Dylan here with me in this conversation, I just got to ask, do you know the celebrity that is Dylan there in Tampa Bay when Orange County was out there a couple seasons back winning the championship? If you don't know, I wish we had the video to show you. He was shirtless with a fanny pack cheering in the stands with the rest of the Orange County fans. So I'm going to introduce you to super fan Dylan here for Orange County. Dylan, I'm going to give you first shot at a question for James.
James, another Scottish manager. Maybe for those of us in Orange County who haven't been paying attention, Neil Collins left a while ago. He went to Barnsley. It didn't go as well for him. You've got Robbie Nielsen now. Is it same old 3-4-3? Is this the Tampa Bay that we can expect to just be difficult and always mount a comeback? If we're up at 70 minutes, what's changed in the last 2 years?
Yeah, that's a good question because obviously there is the cultural background, but I think that for whatever reason, we have had two managers who do like to play relatively similar styles. It's not obviously exactly the same because we don't have the exact same players. So that would be a big difference here. But we do usually play with three at the back and then a very big emphasis on wing backs as well. So yeah, the wing backs are going to be very important for us, just as I'm sure it was under Neil Collins previously. Lewis Hilton is going to be taking up the same role that he was before. He was another big piece under Neil Collins. He remains that under Robbie Nielsen now. So you will see him be very important. And then the other big piece that was not there previously, who has really stepped up this year, has been Danny Crisostomo, somebody that you guys might be familiar with because he was mostly on the West Coast for his USL career. Yes, exactly. And yeah, he is kind of an all-action player at this point where he is going to try to get himself involved in helping us build up the wings with those wingbacks that I mentioned earlier. So on the right side, it has been Pacific Nyongabire, comes to us from the Canadian Premier League. And on the left side, it has been Blake Bodley. He just had an injury recently. So he's actually been replaced for, I think, the last game or two with Eddie Manjoma, another mostly West Coast player. And yeah, so that is the team that we have been building up to. Mostly over those two wingback positions and then trying to create number overloads, let's say, with those players. And then if they can get the ball back into the box with Manuel Arteaga sitting there, he has been deadly for us up top. And Cal Jennings has been the other guy who's been really involved in the build-up for most of our chance creation.
I was actually going to ask about him next. So well done on segueing. Cal Jennings was a very hot commodity coming off of that 2022 season, I think. It sounds like from what you've said, he's not leading the line. Are we expecting him to drop in and let the other two kind of run past him? What is his role and how is he slotted in for the Rowdies?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say he is still leading the line, so to speak. It's just a bit of a difference in terms of where he scores his goals as opposed to where Manuel Arteaga scores his goals. So those are going to be our two most dangerous players for sure up top. And Cal does like to drop in a little bit deeper so that he can build up a head of steam, kind of running at players. And that is where you will most likely see him dropping in to assist with the build-up along with the wingbacks. So he would mostly start out on the right side. The last couple of games, it was Josh Perez who was starting out on the left side in a similar role. They have been the guys who add to the numbers to try and create those number overloads that I was referring to. So, yeah, like I said, on the right, it'll probably be Crisostomo, along with Nyongabire and Cal Jennings, and then Cal Jennings, if we need this positional play, then it would be him receiving the ball, like I said, a little bit deeper. He can turn and he can just run at people because that's something that he's good enough at, that he can create chances just by doing it. On the other side, it'll be Josh Perez and I guess probably Eddie Manjoma this weekend. If not, it'll be Blake Bodley, depending on where he is in his injury comeback. And then they will try to build up those numbers where they can get it up to up the wing and then cross the ball back in where they can try to find Manuel Arteaga. So it is leading the line for both Arteaga and Jennings, but it is definitely a slightly different role for each of them. Arteaga does appear to be the guy who's going to be sitting in the box a lot more frequently. He's going to be the guy who's going to try to get on the end of crosses a lot more frequently. And Cal Jennings is someone who's going to do it all on his own if he can. Josh Perez has been the guy who will do it all on his own on the left side, but he's just a less frequent starter, I guess, probably down to the fact that he doesn't have as many goals as Cal Jennings. But to try and reach the same tally that Jennings and Arteaga has is a very tall task. So that's why they stay on the field as much as they do.
Got it. Defensively, tactically, I think the last time Orange County was a competitive team and played Tampa was, in a final.
Yeah.
And Forrest Lasso was there. It seems like Tampa's done a good job of retooling and rebuilding and getting a little bit younger. To me, that typically says, hey, if you play a direct game, it's not as much of an issue because pace isn't usually as much of an issue with younger players. What's Orange County's key to scoring a couple on Tampa? What is Tampa's biggest weakness?
Well, I would lean towards a couple of different items, I suppose. So there are a couple of things that I would say are potential issues. So one thing is quick direct play can be a problem. It's not always the biggest problem because, as you said, there have been moves to try and get a little bit younger and therefore a little bit quicker on the back line. If the Rowdies will identify that as a large potential problem, then they will try to cover for that with the little bit more speed that they can add to the back line. So usually we can prevent that if needed. But at the same time, it has been a little bit of a problem here and there. Where I would really say the Rowdies have had a lot of issues, especially lately, is off of set pieces. The other thing, any team can be caught in transition. So yeah, that quick direct play will catch us, but we have also had issues definitely with set pieces. And I don't remember exactly which game it was. I believe it was a 2-2 draw. So I would have to go back and look. But there was a 2-2 draw, if I'm not mistaken, in which both of the teams' goals were scored. I'm sorry, it was a 3-2 win for us against Louisville. It just came back to me. But the two goals that were scored against us were both off of set pieces. So there are definitely problems when it comes to that. I don't know if it's maybe the team gets a little lackadaisical and they lose their focus in between those moments where a team is lining up to actually take the free kick, the corner kick, what have you. But that has been a problem every so often. So like I said, there is a potential, though, if you have the speedy players and if you have the real quick people up top, they can still beat us and burn us that way. But I do think that another big standout would be set pieces.
Final question for you before we kind of flip things over to Ray. 4th place, 17 matches, 8 wins, 5 draws, 4 losses. Kind of a mixed bag from the outside looking in. What's the high moment and the low moment for Tampa this year?
Well, I would definitely say some of our high moments are beating New Mexico because I know they're currently leading out in the West. Beating Sacramento in Sacramento, that was a big one. And then that one that I just referred to actually was 3-2 win over Louisville. Those were the high moments for sure. Now, our lower moments are the exact opposite, where we go and we beat these big teams. Unfortunately, especially in the last month or so. Yeah, the last month has been pretty bad in this sense. We have had a lot of trouble beating the worst teams, the lesser teams, let's say. I shouldn't call them worst teams because any team can win on any given day, but definitely the teams that are below us in the table is where we have had the most trouble, especially away from home and on turf fields. So that doesn't bode well, I guess, in Orange County's case this week, but it has been a big issue. And those are the teams that like to sit back. They have a relatively easy time preventing us from scoring in quite a few of these games, and then they do come back and they beat us in transition. So, yeah, it is that mixed bag, just as you said. It's us trying to figure out exactly why it's been so mixed down here.
Yeah, Dylan sort of stole my question, so I have backup, which is awesome. I was just going to bring up it seems like Tampa is playing to the level of their competition this year, right? So they're, like you said, they're beating the big teams. They're struggling against the teams that are struggling in the league. People that watch any sport know that that's something that can happen. Some teams just, for whatever reason, when they're playing the good teams, yeah, let's go gung ho. When we're playing the team we think we should be, this is a piece of cake. We don't have to worry so much. So hopefully the way Orange County's been playing, I would put them more in the sort of afterthought type teams for a lot of the teams that are competing for championships. So hopefully Tampa Bay just decides this is not going to be a difficult match and they play to the level and they overlook Orange County. My question for you, and then I'll give you an opportunity to ask a question or two of us. Everyone that watches the show knows how much I loved Danny Crisostomo when he was with Orange County. He was definitely one of my favorites. I bought his game worn jersey when they auctioned it off. I still have that. I just got to ask this. Are the Tampa Bay fans treating Danny with the respect that Danny deserves as a player that really gives their all for the team that they're playing for?
I think that the Tampa Bay fans have really embraced him. If I'm being honest, when he was signed over the offseason, I don't know how many of us predicted that he would be this locked-in starter that he has become, but he has really taken the team by storm. Him and the other player that I would put in this category is Josh Perez. They were players that were not necessarily the most highly regarded as we were getting into the preseason and getting ready for the first game. And since then, both of them have really taken over the chance creation for the Tampa Bay Rowdies this season. So Danny Crisostomo, I really, what I want, because his name is so long, it's always hard to fit it onto a line when I'm doing on my notes for our own podcast. But I would like for us as a fan base to come up with some type of nickname that reflects the way that he plays. And I don't know that we have done that yet, but if you guys have any suggestions, then I would also like to take those, because we could get something going there for sure. He is so hardworking, just as you said, and I personally love to see it.
And I don't want to break the hearts of Orange County fans, but I did hear rumors in the offseason that he actually was wanting to come back to Orange County. They just couldn't make it happen as far as the contract. So then he goes to Tampa Bay. And his story with you all is the same story he had here in Orange County. He didn't come in with the thought he was going to make a big impact or play a lot of minutes. And somehow, some way, he worked, got in there, and he actually made a strong contribution with his time here in Orange County. James, I want to give you an opportunity to ask a few questions or a couple questions of us if you have any. If not, no problems. But do you have any questions for Dylan and myself?
Well, I was going to turn kind of a similar way back to you guys, just that you were asking me, where are the chances coming from, that kind of stuff. I have in my own notes, I have for you guys just the stat leaders, let's say, the highest goal scorer, assists, where the big chances are coming from. But I wanted to hear what you guys had in terms of how Orange County go about creating their own chances and where we need to be most fearful.
Such a difficult question to ask, because really it's been such a crazy season with injuries, players playing, not playing here and there. I don't think we definitely haven't had what was our penciled in best 11 at all this season. I guess one thing I could say before I let Dylan handle, because he's, again, the more knowledgeable person when it comes to the tactical aspects of soccer. Last week I called it out that the team wasn't giving Ethan Zubak what is needed for him to be successful. I believe in the match against Memphis, we saw some of that stuff that Ethan is able to do work with the team. So some of those placements when they're hoofing the ball up to him and he's trying to win the ball in the air because he's a taller guy, heading it to somewhere where he's anticipating a teammate should be. For most of the season, it's been nowhere, and the other team gets the ball. This last match against Memphis, they sort of are figuring it out, it seems like, at least for that match. There were multiple times where he's receiving those passes, playing that hold-up play of a big man trying to win the ball in the air, trying to put it down in a position for teammates to be successful, and it worked out. And I think that was a big reason why Orange County had such a successful match at home against Memphis. Now, can they keep that going? That's the big question. But for me, that's sort of, with the way this team is built with the injuries, that's really where you're going to get your chance creation is if you can involve Ethan and have the teammates supporting him when he's winning those balls in the air or battling for the ball. Dylan, do you have any alternate thoughts on that?
Yeah, largely in part because we've had so many injuries in such a chaotic season that you might not ever have an idea where a goal is coming from. Bryce Jamison is a threat, and he's proved that time and again. Sometimes it's Colin Shuttler running up in the 95th minute, as Sacramento learned at the beginning
That's
of the year.
right.
It's a bit chaotic, but sometimes set pieces tend to be where we go. And a lot of that is down to the personnel who are going to be fit enough to actually appear. But when we actually have center backs playing, a lot of the times a set piece is a good way for us to pull something out of nowhere.
Gotcha. Well, that is good to know. I'm sure that our the scouting department of our club down here will obviously be keeping that in the back of their brain as they prepare for this game.
I could throw in just two other areas where that are dangerous with Orange County as far as the attack. It's our outside backs. If both of our main outside backs, Owen Lamb, Ryan Dogman, are on the pitch and playing in the position, they're creating chances for our attackers. We saw it earlier in the season before Brian Olowski gets hurt. I think Ryan had 2 or 3 really great crosses in front of goal, made it really easy for Brian Olowski to score goals. And we've seen it recently with Owen Lamb too, with some of his great crosses and creating chances for his teammates as well. I think they're really our best, I guess, assisters. Is that a word, Dylan? Dylan likes when I make up words. They're our best at creating chances from their positions. They're probably the best pair, I would say, in the league for creating chances from that position as a duo, one on the right, one on the left side. So that's another place I would say Tampa Bay fans should look. If we're succeeding there, then that's good for Orange County.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think that I have any other questions for you guys, but I obviously appreciate you having me on and taking the time to talk about this game coming up here, because it's good that it's good when we can interact as USL fans. That's my outlook.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking some time to join us. James, before we let you go, share with our listeners if they want to hear more from you or from RBLR Sports, where should they look?
Yeah, well, as you said, RBLR Sports, we're at RBLR Sports on all the social media stuff. And also, as you said, we cover not just the Rowdies, but the Rays, the Bucks, the Lightning. And now we have a show for the Tampa Bay Sun, the new women's team in the USL Super League. So I know it's very specific to the center of Florida. And if that's not necessarily what you're interested in, I understand. But I'm sure that there's other stuff that we could interest you in with other sports. And like I said, our women's team, we're covering them too. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on at RBLR.
Awesome. James, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with us. And best of luck to your Rowdies the rest of the season, except for this coming weekend. We hope you stumble a little bit. But other than that, have a good rest of your season.
Naturally. Thank you. Same to you.